Hi folks, welcome to this AmplifyFE webinar for the week of VocTech. And today, Lynn and I are here to share with you the Insights AI case studies for this year. This is something we've been doing every year the past few years, but this year we've got three fantastic case studies to share with you. All right. But before we get into that, who even is AmplifyFE? Well, our main thing that we do is that we celebrate communities of practice in FE. We like to connect the dots, bring people together, and our names, as our namesake says, amplify everything that's going on in FE. And when we say FE, we mean all areas of the sector. Now, the AmplifyFE network is led by ALT, that's the Association for Learning Technology, in partnership with and funded by UFI VocTech Trust. We launched in 2020 with doing our audits. So they were community practice sector audits, basically, just to see and scope out the audits, the communities of practice that were going on in the sector, because there were so many. And over the years, we've seen those communities of practice improve, and the numbers improve over the years. Another element, another strand is one led by Lynn, who is here with today, who has been doing some fantastic research into digital practice, innovative digital practice that has been going on in our sector. And the things that she's going to be sharing with you today are going to be a few of the case studies that were specifically about AI this year. And then my role as part of AmplifyFE is that I'm the lead for the community space. So that's a relatively new part of AmplifyFE. Well, I say new, but actually I've been doing it for about 2 or 3 years now, I think. And we focus very much on amplifying the work of practitioners. So in that we do it via a blog, we do it via podcast and via webinars, but we'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later. But before I pass over to Lynn, check out this lovely picture of all three of us there, hot off the press, just from DigiFest last week. That's all three of us. That's Emma, Lynn, and I, who run those three different strands that I walked through. But over to Lynn, who's going to talk to you through all of the insights and those AI case studies that you're here to hear all about.
Thanks so much, Chloe, with your help, of course. So welcome, everybody. And it's great to see so many of you joining us as part of the week of VocTech. What I'm going to do is go through the research actually from the beginning and just explain how we found ourselves with these new AI case studies today. So what is the Insights research? Well, it began in 2021-22, and I was lucky enough to speak in depth with about 30 wonderful people from right across the sector and learning technology. And what we wanted our focus to be is, how do we design and deploy learning technology most effectively to impact those people who have been most impacted by the digital divide? So it's the vocational learners that had really suffered from the digital divide, obviously made worse since the pandemic and lockdown and all of that. So who did I speak to? I spoke to FE and skills practitioners from right across the widest part of the sector. I spoke to leaders and managers, digital learning professionals who developed and designed and deployed learning technology. So a really sort of wide scope of study in terms of who we were saying, look, this is the key question. How do we get adult vocational learners online? How can we empower digital skills development? And what we found was what we call three pivotal factors. So first of all, might be obvious, but we have got to open the doors and get that digital access for those people. And it's not as simple as it seems. It might be getting them in through the doors of a larger FE college or community learning, but actually sometimes it can be getting onto a bus and getting that out into the car park or the local community centre for people who are really impacted by the digital divide. So it's going to meet people where they are and giving them digital access when it's convenient for them. And also timely support. Access is nothing without support when you need it, when you hit one of those bumps in the road, so that people just don't lose confidence and say, I can't do this. What they also need is time to develop, so time to play with the technology. We'll be talking about sort of play later and the power of play. So that was the first sort of pivotal factor. But I think what we're going to focus on most of all with the case studies is meaningful use, because that's one thing that is so key. I know maths teacher friends will always say, if you want to switch adults off maths, you give them a maths problem about dividing up sweeties, that kind of infantilizing of examples. And what we've got to do if we want to get adults online and using digital tools meaningfully is give them something relevant. So what they want to know is, how can they use, wonderful apps to find out the cheapest train travel and times to visit friends and relatives and family? How do they go about putting a CV together, or giving them, if they're running a business as something like a plumber or a hairdresser, how do they build a powerful presence online? So we've got to give them those relevant tools and relevant uses and really sell that use of digital skills. If they've got a relevant use, it will build their confidence because they'll see a reason for actually doing all of this. But the thing we've got to bear in mind while all of that's going on is, people who have been impacted by the digital divide are some of the most vulnerable learners. So obviously we've got things like online scams, identity theft, how is your data being used? So we've got to do the safeguarding information for them and make sure they can safeguard their well-being. When we've got those two in place and we've got the foot through the door and people are using digital meaningfully, we've got to help them build a digital identity. So what does a professional digital identity look like? It could look like a fantastic LinkedIn page with lots of connections. It could look like a powerful maybe Facebook or other online presence for their company, so they can shout about what they're doing. And we've got to do also is make sure that we are growing their awareness of the complete digital skill set they're going to need. So we identified those as the pivotal digital factors for getting adults online and learning. One thing that came through really as a strong message, and Chloe, I'm sure this has happened to you. Have you been given a very expensive black digital box in the classroom and told that it was fabulous and that you should definitely use it? And I'm sure that, there's probably people in our lovely audience today who have said, yes, we've had digital visited onto us. When it comes to getting teachers on side, we've got to do exactly the reverse of that. We've got to talk to them about who the end user community is going to be. So what are the learners' identity and their values? What are their core beliefs and purpose? What do they actually need? And only when we've really interrogated what those core learner needs are and what their identity is, then we can start to work with teachers to put together a meaningful digital pedagogy. But it's got to be grounded in what the end user needs. And then finally, when we have got our digital pedagogy foundations sound, that's when we're going to work with teachers to begin the digital design. So what strategies, what tools, what learning environments? So it shouldn't be a digital box first. We've got to think about the community first, then get a pedagogy or a range of pedagogies that suit them. And only then do we move on to looking at digital design strategies and tools and what learning environment or apps we're going to be using. So that was the initial research in 2021. So what happened next? So in 2022 and into 2023, what we did was take a deeper dive. So getting in-depth interviews with expert innovators, because actually, I don't know about you, but what I like is what good looks like. It's lovely to have the richness of a 30 or 40 page report to read through, but actually some key impactful little vignettes of what's worked in practice with a real voice of the practitioners and their learners coming through was what we wanted to put across. So we looked for key digital projects right across the sector in the widest sense. So not just large FE colleges, adult and community learning, prison learning, absolutely anywhere that adult learning goes on. And we chose projects who I exemplify the insights findings. So they were really working with the end user and identifying their needs. And we shared these with the sector early in 2023 and also into 2024. So there's 11 insights case studies now. And when I said we really dealt with a whole breadth of the sector, this is what I'm talking about. So from Northern Ireland, the wonderful CITBN's Planet Design It construction, but learners working together digitally to build a bridge that they can actually then stand on. YMCA's wonderful project up in Scotland, which was a Downs Link project, Passport to Independence, where learners helped to open a charity shop and publicise it using digital design. We got the AP Connect programme where FE teachers came together to work in community to develop their practice. A lot of you might be familiar with the next one. So it's Peter Kilcoyne and the team, Teachermatics, ChatGPT powered innovation that helps us to all design curriculum and schemes of work and lesson plans, but also lovely things like sort of quizzes and assessment activities for our learners. One that we really want to focus on is Coventry City Council's permission to play. And I know Sandra Smith is with us today in our participants. I can see her there. And this was a wonderful project. And again, play being important. What Sandra did was to say to workers in the council who hadn't got developed digital skills, what would you like to do? And she and her team worked with council colleagues to get them online using Zoom to chat to relatives, get them to design Facebook pages, and that permission to play, having some time out of work to actually play with digital, was really successful. ProPrep is a wonderful AI video-based revision tool that allows people studying for things like A-levels to boost their learning. And what we did at the end in case studies 7 and 8 in that first tranche of case studies was to exemplify what a commercial learning design team and an FE and skills-based innovation team might do. So what are the key principles when it comes to developing and deploying learning designs? You've got a QR code there, which I'm sure you saw, which will allow you to look at the case studies, and it's also here on the screen now. So what have we done? New for 2024-25 is obviously the hot topic AI innovation. So what we did here was to zone in on 3 projects where we got real amazing AI innovation. So Hull College, Bridgend College, and the unsung heroes of the FE and skills sector, prison learning. So what we're going to do for the rest of the session is unpick all of those and take, as I say, a closer look at the wonderful innovation from those 3 teams. First off, Deb Millar and the amazing team at Hull College. So this was a UFI funded project, and Deb's project used AI translation tools. Hull College, the constituency, a lot of asylum seekers, a lot of refugee learners, which means they've got over 1,000 ESOL learners in college. And I love this quote from Deb. It's never, ever about learning technology itself. It's about problem solving, winning hearts and minds over to the benefits of using it. And Deb says it's the right tool at the right time for the right purpose. And you've got to show teachers that its use will be what she calls a game changer for learners. So as I said, her problem, and Chloe, I know this will chime with you, often ESOL classes can have speakers of over 20 different languages. And it's not just the language challenges. Many of them are also new to UK culture. So it's finding examples as well as the language. So what did Deb do? She came up with a prototype solution, which she called Coffee Table Staff CPD. So she gathered, first of all, teacher colleagues together in groups of 6 or 7, and she gave them documents in other languages, a Spanish holiday menu, some directions for taking things like medicine, but in German. So actually putting them really into the shoes of learners, having to manage these complex documents and also have dialogues in other languages. And, you know, she said putting staff into the shoes of those learners was such a powerful thing for sharing experiences. And as she says here, it's not about cutting edge technology, it's simple tools used correctly in the right place with users' needs. And she really worked hard to understand teachers' existing pedagogies and learner profiles before she said, hey, use this. What I really want to focus on here, though, is the fact that it wasn't just teachers. So Deb and the team took a whole organisation approach, and I think that was the real strength of it. So she began with educator CPD, but then moved out to invite to this coffee table CPD teams from the Learning Centre, from estates, catering and reception colleagues. You've got cooks, you've got people who were doing gardening, you've got reception staff. And they were all trained to use the AI tools. And what Deb did was to say, look, if you don't know every in and out of this tool right away, don't worry, have a go and work in partnership, learn with the learners how to use those tools. And I think her success really speaks for itself. She says it was a game changer because not only did it do what it needed to by simplifying enrolment and induction. So one example she gives was that induction for some learners was shortened from a 4-day process to a 4-hour process, but actually made the college as a whole organisation seem like a welcoming, positive place for learners to be. And that made all the difference. As you can see, her ESOL attendance is up to over 90%, achievement 90%. And I love that fact that 55% of her ESOL learners are in paid work. And one of the things, the themes that we're going to talk about today is FE teachers' altruism, because is Deb done? No. She wants to bring this to other people, and she says that there's the potential to extend this initiative nationally, or an ESOL hub of free resources, and then maybe even internationally in future. So she's keen to share now that they've ironed out all the wrinkles and got this AI Translate really working. And Deb worked with Chloë. So there is an AmplifyFE blog which she's written about AI Translate. So the QR code is there that can allow you to access it. And it's got learner case studies from the project. And I've just picked out a little quote there. This has been the most powerful, emotive project I've ever worked on. Learners are high-fiving her in the corridors, but they're telling Deb and other colleagues about their lives, how and where they've travelled and their difficulties in reaching the UK. They're telling their stories. And I know that one thing that Deb has done up in Hull is to organise an art exhibition where she's encouraged learners to create art and write poetry and short stories about their travels, which has been really, really, really powerful.
You know, that's the thing about these case studies, Lynn, that actually, you know, there's so many more opportunities beyond that. So I know, like, obviously, Deb has also written a blog, and I know, yeah, she's not
Yes,
she's
I'll
not
pop that
stopping
back up.
anytime
There you
soon, is
go.
she? I
Yeah.
know we're going to move on to Pete in a minute.
No,
I
but
had a chat with him and over a podcast. But when it comes to the work that she, you know, was doing, especially from like an ESOL teacher's perspective, I remember her meeting her at uh, the AI community practice led by Kirsty, and yeah, she was the way that she was talking about it so passionately, and the curation of these ESOL stories, it was fantastic. So you know, it's a really really empowering thing for ESOL folks to be able to share their stories. And I think if we can help that and use AI to actually enable that, then absolutely brilliant. So she's unstoppable. I can't wait to hear more from her.
No, she's a force of nature,
Yeah.
absolutely. And you know, it's great that not only was she a case study, but I know you're going to encourage people to participate in this later. She wrote a blog for us, which gives us, you know, even more detail from the project. So I know we're going to be hearing more from you later, Chloë, on the ways that people can participate, just as Deb has. Going to move on to the second case study, which is Pete Dunford of Bridgend College, and he is an action researcher. So it's such a powerful thing for FE lecturers, educators to become researchers into their own practice. So, the wonderful sort of OTLA program encourage people to try out action research into their own practice. And I don't know, I think Pete said because he's an animal studies lecturer, which did make me laugh. He said his students are accustomed to being guinea pigs. They're fully aware that they're being researched into and they take an active part in it. And he loves trying things out. So what Pete wanted to do was to help learners who were doing things like GCSE and A-level revision. And he got the AI, it's so creative. He set the AI up to be a confused peer, so a friend of theirs who was having problems with their revision. The challenge he identified was that some learners were really adept users of generative AI, others had got no experience, and those that had no experience tended to be quite fearful of it, which is a reasonable reaction. They'd heard stories in the press, about ethics and data use and the dangers of it. But he did want to encourage them to experiment. So he provided some sample AI prompts for learners to use. So what the AI would do is it would introduce itself as a confused student needing help. So for example, maybe the student was revising a topic like photosynthesis. It would say, hey, is this, am I right? Is this what photosynthesis is? And it would give a summary, but there would be deliberate errors in there. And some of the thinking and the responses were incomplete. And what the learners needed to do was to reply to the AI to correct it or complete the things where it had got missing facts. So Pete trialed this, learners tested the dialogues with Google Gemini and gave him some feedback. And, they thought there were places which it could be improved, but Pete also found that their answers were really rather brief, so it needed some refinement. So what he did was, and we always hear about, the amazing amount of evidence for competitive learning, gamification, we might call it. And I doubt there's many educators who haven't, maybe as an icebreaker, used the 2 truths and a lie game. 2 things that are true and 1 thing that isn't. So that's what he did. He adapted the AI prompts so that the confused student would say 2 things that were correct, maybe about photosynthesis, and 1 that was completely wrong. And the learners would have to get in and look at the statements and correct it. And he found that they really enjoyed the new version and they engaged it. But then it got some of the learners working back with a prototype for deeper learning and then using the gamified version for quick practice. But I think Pete here found something even more powerful, actually. Learners recognise that AI prompt writing, prompt craft or engineering as we might call it, is a valuable skill. And most of them embraced use of AI. So that's great. I think that 88% of his learners now plan to explore other tools and 75% are using the prompts again. But one thing I mentioned during Deb's case study is the tremendous altruism of people working in FE. So Pete's created 2 open resources. First is AI prompts for students, and the second are AI activities for the classroom. And you can access those via the QR code that we've got on the right of the screen there. And it's great that he wants to co-develop these with the community. So he's put up some initial prompts, almost as think pieces, and he would like you to get in touch. He'd like you to use them and then provide him with feedback and say, what else would you do? How can it be improved? So that his action research, it is a live thing and it goes on. And I know, Chloe, you had the chance to have a chat with Pete, is that right, via one of the podcasts?
Yes, I did. I think I think we might have actually kicked off season 3 together. So I recorded it maybe last summer with him, which was a really actually quite a good time to have that discussion with him because I was just starting out on my own AI journey, really. So it was quite nice to have that that kind of burgeoning conversation with him. But what I particularly liked was, as you just mentioned, like his altruism and wanting to actually share with people. And he's a true action researcher. He really is. Like he doesn't see it as, well, this is the end. I'm going to keep developing. I'm going to keep working things and tweaking things. And he wants, he wants to have conversations across the college with different departments and see how things might be worked or adapted for different departments, but also different organizations across FE, HE as well. So so when he says that he would like to hear from you, he really would. That's kind of like his message. And the other thing was, he was talking about, and I know that's via the link as well, some of the resources he's created, lots of things to help with AI during induction as well, which that will come faster than we want it to, won't it? So yeah, so definitely check out those fantastic resources of Pete's, and also the podcast as well.
Yes, because it's great, your podcast that sort of like reinforce the case studies, that's the practitioner's own voice, and it's bringing a real richness to it. Our final case study that we're going to share today is, I think, the unsung heroes of FE and skills. Basically, we often hear FE described as a Cinderella sector. Well, surely prison learning is the Cinderella part of the Cinderella sector. And Alison Brown, who's one of the Novus team working with Jane Hill and that wonderful prison learning team. And she puts it beautifully here. From the moment they go into prison, prisoners are in a bubble with no digital skills growth unless the educators are able to constantly upskill, because it's such a fast moving area, and then bring them with us, she says. So she sees part of her role as preparing learners for the next part of their journey, giving them a grounding with digital awareness. And obviously, prison learners are one of those most impacted by the digital divide. They're not able to go online and use technologies such as AI. So Alison's challenge was how to provide them with realistic digital experiences, but also not just using the digital tools, but using them in workplace vocational settings. And she identified a key problem, that because of the digital restrictions, lots of prison educators were having to either use static screenshots, so giving learners pictures of technology being used, or just have that tutor-led demo. They could do some online searches, and teachers could use tools like Teachermatic, but only from home. So Alison's prototype solution was a real alternative pedagogy. So she began with awareness raising discussions on AI use. What do you think it is? What will it do in the future? Why is it important? What are the dangers? But then she and her team of tutors demonstrated Gen AI in authentic vocational scenarios, such as graphic design. And once they'd had a demo, prisoners were straight in there. So she encouraged them to create handwritten prompts. Remember, they can't use AI directly themselves. So they created handwritten prompts to create products such as graphic or product designs. And she would then type those in for them, and they could see the success of the prompts they'd written and the kind of designs that they came up with. So she's effectively educating learners about using AI in class. And again, we're going to return to our altruism theme, because Alison has created a prompt craft sheet, which she's now launched Novus wide, so right across the organisation. So it's helping, here's a lovely example, creating taglines and logos in a graphics session. And AI is also helping learners to develop business ideas. And again, coming back to that theme from the Insights research, getting learners to work in realistic, authentic vocational scenarios is the key. And they were doing everything except typing the prompt themselves. She really challenged them to carefully consider the target market and the end user needs, but also having those deeper discussions about AI and its impacts on society. So what will the workforce look like when you re-enter it? And she's also been using AI for things like progress tracking. And it's great news that prisoners with additional needs are now achieving equally to their peers. So as I was saying, altruism again, Alison has developed that AI prompt craft guide, now launched Novus wide for all tutors. And she's also putting in place on-site digital training and mentoring along with her manager and the team. And that includes AI CPD from her. So, an amazing project there, really making all the difference with authentic vocational scenarios. So I'm popping the QR code up again there. So those three brand new AI case studies: Hull College, Bridgend College, and HMP Preston. So we've kept it hopefully rich with the voice of the educators, but also not an onerous read. So they're 2 sides of A4 each, but each of them have got little QRs you can see on both sides that will take you to lots of extra information if you want to dig deeper about it.
I'm so glad, Lynn, that you did. One of the case studies is from Alison from Novus, from Prison Educators, because I really do think that some of the most innovative digital ideas have come from prison educators. Like, there's so much we can learn from them, and I think a lot of that is because they really have to think outside of the box. I mean, I thought I had to think outside the box when I was working for the council and going from, one organisation, one room to another. Didn't know what kind of tech I was going to have, but prison education is something else. And I think there's some fantastic work coming from prison educators in the digital realm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Mm-hmm. But you know what you were just saying then about the case studies as well, and how they are just nice and short. A lot of the stuff we try to do is nice and short so that people can basically access it on their commute. That's what I always say when people come and they're not sure about writing a blog, and I'm like, it's not a long journal entry, not a long journal article, rather, it's just something that's really nice and, chunky in a way, so
Yes.
just getting straight to it. But it is something that someone can just basically access on the commute. Same with the podcasts
Yeah,
and the webinars. That's why they're
absolutely.
nice and short. So, we mentioned before that there's 3 different strands when it comes to AmplifyFE, and you've just worked through all the fantastic stuff that you get to do for AmplifyFE, Lynn, all the research and the case studies. But there's another element, and it's the element that kind of kicked us off in 2020, which was the Communities of Practice Sector Audit Report. This is something that kind of Emma focuses on and is really passionate about. So every single year we've produced a report basically viewing over, surveying the sector from all the communities of practice. And every single year, as I said before, the numbers are improving on those communities of practice, even though at the moment, and it's mentioned very much in this audit, that the social media landscape is changing. We have a lot of people moving away from X, formerly known as Twitter. And in fact, hot off of the press this week is a podcast between Emma and I where we discuss this audit, and we also discuss the changes in landscape. It's, obviously I'm biased. I think it's quite a nice little podcast, a little chat between Emma and I, where we're a little bit nostalgic in a way, and think about how much certain platforms and certain things have given us over the past few years when it comes to being involved in different community practice, and encouraging teachers in FE to actually be more involved with one another regardless of geography. And just making all those different connections, regardless of where people are, using social media. So we had that chat, and that's our podcast. But in combination with that, we have Dr. Lou Mycroft wrote a blog. Once she listened to our podcast, she wrote a blog that is kind of like, it's in combo. They work together. They work. So you've got to kind of like access both of them, and that's like, they're both kind of love letters in a way, I guess. But Lou's is very, very, very forward thinking, kind of like, what are we going to do next, and how can we carry on with that that kind of momentum, and make sure that it doesn't just disappear because people are leaving Twitter. How can we keep that momentum up? And Dr. Lou Mycroft also wrote the foreword for us for our 2024 report. So you might be sitting there thinking, yeah, but how can I get involved with AmplifyFE? Because you keep mentioning it and you keep saying that we can write a blog. How can we do all of those things? And also, how can we access all of those things? Well, the one link that you need, if you we've been showing loads of links today, right? But if you have one link to rule them all, it is that link tree. And that will give you access to the podcast, the blogs, events listing for future, but also all the recordings on our YouTube, our community space YouTube channel, the audits, the research, the case studies. I don't even know whether our FE landscape, our map, if you want to add your own community to it. There's so much that you can access via that link tree. So have a little explore and a little look around. But you'll be able to find out all the updates on our research projects, and like I said, all the different podcasts and webinars. But it's not just about engaging with that content yourself as a practitioner. It's also about amplifying you, because we wouldn't exist without you, right? So it's also, I guess it's a bit of a call out, because from us, the team at AmplifyFE, to those of you that, because we know that FE practitioners can sometimes be a little bit modest and they don't wave the pom-poms as enigmatically as they should do with, with all the fantastic work that they do. We were talking about this last week, weren't we, Lynn, at DigiFest? We need to, wave our pom-poms a little bit more. And sometimes that could just be, as a peer, if you know that one of your colleagues is doing something fantastic, give them a little nudge and say to them, yeah, go and try a webinar. You've done that Teach Meet at the staff meeting the other day, and that was awesome. Why don't you then go and do a webinar for half an hour? Dip your toe in. That's what these things are all about. The podcast, I don't think I'm scary, or I try not to be scary.
You're not scary, absolutely not.
So what were you saying the other day, Lynn? What did you call it? Like a coffee, just a coffee shop chat.
Just a coffee chat, absolutely. And when you pop in via that QR code and listen to ones that have been done, you'll see how completely relaxed it is and how very much Chloe puts people at their ease.
I do try. And when it comes to the blogs as well, if you've never written a blog before, there's quite a few folks that haven't written one before. So I think a few months ago, Zoe Tierney wrote her first blog ever, and it was a smash. I thought it was a smash, and it needed like hardly any edits. It was absolutely fantastic. So also go check out Zoe's blog. But yeah, so if you are not sure about writing a blog, then we can always get in, a room together and just like collaboratively work on it, or you can send me some drafts, whatever you like. I'd love to support you to and to amplify the work that you've been doing, because that's what we do and that's what we're passionate about at AmplifyFE. Oh, and of course, if you've got anything going on, so whether you've got your own podcast that you'd like to be shared widely, if you've got your own blogs that you've written, or if you've got an event that you would like to share, then please, no matter, we're on all social media platforms. Though, as a sidebar, we did announce this. Well, we have announced in the podcast, if you listen to the one I mentioned before, between Emma and myself about the audit, we will be leaving X at the end of this month, which is March 2025, for anyone watching this back at a later date. But if you use AmplifyFE, hashtag AmplifyFE at any of your social media posts, we will see it, and we will rebroadcast, we will reshare, and we can also pop it into our monthly newsletter as well. So of course, please do use that hashtag so that we can see all the stuff that you've been doing. Also, we do have a Padlet calendar as well that has all the different events on. And again, that's twofold. So you as a teacher, as a practitioner, can engage with that and see what's on this month and book onto it if it's relevant to you. But the other element of it is that you can add your own events to it as well, so that we can push those out and we can help you promote them too.
Yes, we've got one thing just in, haven't we? Emma asked us to mention this. So we are. Another opportunity to add your voice. So the Association of Colleges and the UFI VocTech Trust are going to be working in partnership over the next few years to increase the use of vocational technology. And we're talking specifically to FE College. colleagues here. At the minute, they're in the discovery phase. So what they want to do is capture a baseline of current digital technology use across college teaching and learning, but also business support. So they're asking, please, for your ideas and to find out what you're doing. So responses from leaders and from teachers in colleges. And the survey closes just in a couple of weeks' time from when we're doing the event today. So 5 p.m. on Friday, the 4th of April. So there's a QR code there. Or you can go to bit.ly AOC UFI survey. So please lend your voice. I think we've given so many opportunities today, haven't we, Chloe, for people to in FE and skills to share their voices.
Indeed, yes. Like what? Yeah, super important for us to be, like we said before, about using those pom-poms and cheerleading ourselves. Because it's not just about, I mentioned your peers, but also ourselves and one another. But yeah, just giving that little nudge to that colleague that might not necessarily think that they need a light shining on them, but actually the work that they're doing is awesome. And what did you say the other day, Lynn, that some of those folks that you've done case studies with didn't necessarily think that their work was that innovative or that it
Oh,
should be
I heard
shouted
that
about,
so
but
many times, that sort of, uber modest sort of, oh gosh, do you, a real genuine sense of surprise. Do you really want to be talking to me? I,
yes,
why on earth are you talking
yes, I
to me?
do.
Is this going to be interesting to people? And we're just like, yes, absolutely it is.
Mhm.
So thank you very much for joining us. We hope you enjoy engaging in the case studies, and Chloe's going to have the last word about engaging with AmplifyFE, I think.
That's it. Yes, definitely. Please do. Don't just end here on this day, okay? Don't just watch this session and that's it. Definitely join our disc mail, which you can do again via that Linktree link. But also share everything. Share if you've listened to a podcast or if you see a podcast that you might not be interested in, but you know a peer might be interested in, then please do share it. Keep talking about it and keep sharing Amplify FE and keep amplifying the work of one another. Huge thank yous to all of you for spending your lunchtime with us because time is precious. So we really appreciate that as well.
We really do. Thank you so much.